Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here at High Def with my two co-founders, Adam Chorley.
Chandru.
Perfect. Nice. We're going to be talking to you all today about the future of advertising, what we're building here at Alkimi Exchange, and our vision for the future as we get closer to the mainnet launch and really look to achieve what we set out to do when we launched the project. So I'll start by giving everyone kind of a brief overview of what we're going to cover during today's session. We're going to start with some team updates. We're then going to move into some of the products that we've launched recently, and then finally onto what you've got to look forward to and what's coming from now until the end of the year and beyond. So we've been working very hard developing our state channel, and that's the royal we. Our good friend here, Chandru, has been doing most of the legwork there, and we're very happy to say that the team has now grown to 18 people full-time across marketing, sales, development, everything really, as well as a number of external consultants that we're working with that takes the number probably closer to 30 or so. The team have been working very, very hard of late, and you've probably seen labs.alkimi.org. If you haven't, that's the URL. Please go and visit. There might be a QR code behind me that you can click on. That really will be the one-stop platform for all token management, and I won't talk too much about it because I know Chorley's got a lot to say. And then finally, the roadmap. Chandru's been developing a lot of documentation, of logic, and really building out what will be the first state channel on the hypergraph and allow us to service advertisers, publishers, and users to really improve digital advertising online. Before we really jump into that, I wanted to give you all just some more insight into how we're thinking about the Constellation ecosystem, and more specifically the ecosystem we're looking to foster within our state channel. So we always like to think about the hypergraph as a series of concentric circles that are all interlinked with each other. So you have the main hypergraph with then the Alkimi state channel sat in between that. If we were to kind of zoom in specifically to our Alkimi state channel, you'll see that we have Alex, or Alkimi Exchange, as the underlying infrastructure to allow data to be passed from users, from advertisers to publishers, to ensure that all transactions are notarized, to facilitate the buying and selling of ads, and for really users to join the value exchange for the very first time. In order for that to kind of flourish into an ecosystem, we've been thinking about the types of businesses that that ecosystem might need. And it's kind of as an exclusive to everyone on the call, I think maybe some people know about this, but largely everyone doesn't. We've actually founded a agency. This for us acts as our fiat on-ramp. So it enables us to educate advertisers, enables us to educate publishers on the value of a state channel, what that means for them in terms of their trading fees, what that means for them for the transparency of reporting, for all the ads that they're buying and selling, and really what that means for kind of reducing the carbon footprint of advertising, which is pretty significant at the moment. On the other side of the coin, we have an educational portal, which is really going to help foster learning within our ecosystem. So we'll have not just developers figuring out how to build products on the Alkimi state channel, but also developers, business people that really help the Alkimi state channel flourish, and we can service a number of needs. And we really like to think of that as the secondary layer of companies that will exist within our state channel. So imagine you have Alex as the primary level, Alkimi Exchange, the agency and the educational portal as a secondary level, and then what we're really excited about and what we hope those two businesses foster is this tertiary level of businesses that we don't know, that have seen the benefits of building on the hypergraph to specifically service advertising and kind of allow more people to get involved and really allow us to capture market share and serve the advertising community much better than they are served at the moment with the current tech solutions. I will now hand you over to my good friend and colleague, Adam Chorley, who wants to speak a little bit more about the Labs platform and what that'll be servicing.
So next I want to talk to you about Alchemy Labs. This part of the Alchemy ecosystem is designed to bring the users back into the value exchange. So far, the ad exchange has existed between publishers and advertisers, and user data has been bought and sold without their permission. The reason that we've decided to bring the user back into the value exchange is to make sure that the internet advertising that exists in the future services everybody rather than just a select few people who benefit quite largely from it.
Not mentioning any names.
So Alchemy Labs is our user-facing interface, and it will be available for everyone to log into on Monday and start staking. The idea is that will allow them to manage their tokens in multiple ways, whether it be through staking in order to provide bandwidth or any other future products that we might launch. As part of that, we're obviously going to be moving to the L0 tokens. Chandru's been working tirelessly on making that standard. And once that is released, we will obviously need to do a token swap. So the token swap will be available through Alkimi Labs, through our own interface. You'll be connecting your wallet to the site, and then you'll be able to stake those tokens. As well as that, there'll be a lot of other products that we'll be releasing over the coming weeks and months. Some of those will be kind of more fun, like our swag store, and others will have more practical implications. I can't necessarily go into any details as we're working on some pretty top-level stuff, but we are looking to help the user engage with our ecosystem in a more granular way than is currently possible. So, as I said before, their data is bought and sold regularly, and we want them to be able to sell their data to the ecosystem. We're currently working on that, and that will all be available through Alkimi Labs. As we move forward, Alkimi Labs will develop, and it will become a multifaceted area for every user to come and engage with the Alkimi Exchange, and also to help them sell their data onto various parties within the ecosystem. I'll pass over to Chandru, who will talk you through everything else in more detail.
Hello, I'll be giving you a very quick update of everything technical that's been happening, what the tech team have been busy with. So the first point that I'd like to start off is to say a big thank you to all the support that we've received from Constellation. It's been great collaborating with them on various fronts. We've been working with them very closely in producing the documentation for the hypergraph, and we've taken away a lot of learning from collaborating and discussing with them on various topics. And we always believe in giving back to the community in any little way that is possible. And any value that we can add to the ecosystem is, we will be very, very happy to do so. So the documentation is just one part of it. And I know Ben also touched upon the Academy portal. And that is another attempt at giving back to the community and educating people about what we've learned so far, not only in the area of advertising, but also our learnings from building our own state channel. So we hope you will all like it, and it's useful for other projects who build on the hypergraph. That was point number one. So a big thank you again to Constellation. The second point was about the ad exchange that we've been developing. The team have been really busy building the different features of the ad exchange. And as we've already announced before, we are now completely compliant with the pre-bid adapters. So we've had our pre-bid adapters reviewed and approved, and they're now listed on the pre-bid site for any of our publishing partners to use. So that covers about 90% of the publishers who all use pre-bid. So it provides an easy to integrate point with Alkimi Exchange. So this is one of our attempts to meet the market where it is. We want to be able to meet the market with the Web 2 standards, with the current integration points, and then move them over to the benefits of Web 3 and via Web 2.5. So the ad exchange is being built, all the features are being built in order to add value to every partner in the advertising ecosystem. In our attempt to do so, not only have we built those integration points, which are currently existing, we've also made sure that we comply with any regulations. We have the TCF framework that is proposed by the IAB, which we are compliant with. We are also building different tracking mechanisms whereby you can actually see if an ad was really viewed by a user, and if it was a video ad, how much of the video ad was viewed by the user. Was it the first 25%, 50%, 75%, and so on? So this data is extremely useful, not only to our brand partners, but also to the publishing partners. It can give very useful data about what time of the day, how much the ad was viewed, whether the format of the ad actually makes a difference, how is the ad built, the creative itself, would that have an effect on the amount of sales it would produce? So there's a lot of data that is to be had, and all of these features are being built in the ad exchange. What we've also come up with is an easy to use dashboard and a reporting mechanism for both our publishing and demand side partners. So not only do we provide them with the raw data that they can use to build business intelligence reports, we also provide them with visual dashboards which will tell them, how the bid requests are being processed, how the ads are being viewed, and various other statistics which are presented to them in a visual way. So that's another feature that we've completed working, and it will continue to be enhanced as we go along. The last point that I want to talk about is the state channel itself. So we've been working very closely, as I said, with Constellation, and one of the things that we've been doing personally here in Alkimi is to test our ad exchange, test every functionality of the ad exchange in conjunction with what we call a private testnet. So a private testnet is essentially very similar to a public testnet that many of you will be familiar with, but this is made of processing units which we are in control of. So it's very easy for us to upgrade the software that's running on the nodes which comprise the private testnet, and that can be very useful for us to test, go back to the drawing board, make some changes, redeploy, and test again. So it makes that iterative process very useful for us. And we currently are working on such a testnet. And what I can share with you is that our ad exchange has been completely connected to a private testnet, which is essentially a simulation of what will happen over the public testnet or the mainnet. And we are able to capture all of our transactions in a format in which we want to, because we don't want to be exposing too much to break the regulation. We want to be complying with the regulation and also providing transparency and auditability. So we have that connection between an ad exchange and the state channel, and all of the data that we want to capture on the ledgers are being done so. And we also have the ability now to showcase the auditability feature. So any publisher or brand partner will be able to see all of their data, well, not all of their data, non-personal data which complies to data regulations, all of that data captured on the blockchain, the ledger, and that can be used to tie in to data that is captured off the chain, thereby providing complete 100% auditability. So that's another feature that we are working on. And finally, I know Ben was talking about tertiary businesses which can actually build on Alkimi Exchange. And the power of data is what enables us to provide value to all of these tertiary businesses in the advertising ecosystem. And we are currently working on building multiple value streams for each partner in our ecosystem. That is something that we are currently working on. It's in the prototype phase, and we will only be able to reveal in the time to come. That's a very quick update of what's happening on the tech side. And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who's involved in building this product. It's been a great team, and it's a team effort that all of this has been made possible. Thank you.
I was going to say, Chandru, if it wasn't for your mic stand, that would have been a perfect time to do a mic drop, but we move on. So now that we've given you all what we hope is a very exciting update with the progress that's been going on behind the scenes at Alkimi Exchange, we did want to spend some time kind of discussing and talking to the future of advertising as it exists in Web2 companies, right? And the biggest bit of news from this week was the announcement from Google that they're going to be depreciating their cookies in 2024, not 2023 as originally prescribed, and actually even 2022 before that. And I think that's quite interesting. It's kind of Google, which more or less owns half of the advertising market, still cannot find a way to replace the cookie, which has really underpinned everything it's been doing. It's underpinned its targeting. It's why that Google performs so well for advertisers. It's why Google performs so well for themselves. And there are a number of different perspectives. I think we've all got our own one. And for me, I think, and something you talk about quite a lot, Chorley, is kind of this idea of antitrust versus privacy. And it seems at this point that Google have favored antitrust and kind of staying on the right side of that rather than your privacy as a user of the internet. And there is a lot of school of thoughts that will say that perhaps Google will have to separate its respective businesses, which for us at Alkimi is very exciting. I think one of the reasons Google have done so well is because they've had all of that in-house. So by breaking that up, there will be a chance for innovative companies to come in and really change the way that ads are traded. We've been doing a lot of thinking about the future of targeting, and we think that there are a lot of solutions outside of the cookie. I don't know if either of you want to chime in on that, but yeah, there's definitely a world where cookies don't exist and advertising can still be supremely effective.
Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting. Like you said, I think it actually started in 2020 that they were meant to be deprecating third-party cookies. Obviously, that hasn't transpired, and they have failed to come up with a solution. I think there's been about 3 different attempts.
It wasn't it the federated learning of cohorts, which was even less GDPR compliant than...
Yeah, and I think this is the problem that they're going to face, is that GDPR exists in Europe, CCPA exists in California specifically, probably going to end up across the whole of America at some point, given that it was written by Kamala Harris. So they have to work within 2 different frameworks for privacy, while at the same time also helping those businesses that have built on their current network, which are using third-party cookies. They have to make those available to those people and keep the privacy of their users, which is basically impossible. So, I mean, you could call Google the cookie monster. I mean, they have basically been going around hoovering up any data they can do from anywhere, which is why you see Android, right? That the whole point of Android is that it is a big data leak for them. It's a way of them basically learning more about users from various other applications that they might use, such as email, maps, even the fact that your Wi-Fi logs on to different places in the house. They can pretty much tell what room you're in. So all of these things have led to like a big data pool for them. And the cookie is just one part of that, like very big kind of data ecosystem that they've created for themselves based on your data, and not asking for it either. They've just taken it. So I think the idea that they can carry on in this vein is pretty much untenable. But the use of cookies is the most obvious and easiest like regulatory stick to beat them with effectively.
Yeah, and I think the cookie is pretty powerful, particularly when it is combined with device IDs. And I think that's where businesses like Google are doing much better than businesses like Meta, because Google do have A, browsers, but B, hardware in the form of phones, laptops, tablets, you name it. Whereas Meta don't have the same issue, and any quarterly earnings reports nerds out there will have seen that Meta just missed their earnings goal for the previous quarter, and they themselves have said this is down to changes within Apple and iOS on whether device IDs can actually be surfaced. And device ID, as it kind of insinuates, is an alphanumeric string that allows that to be tied to a particular device, which you can imagine doesn't change over a particularly long period of time. You might have a phone for 1 to 4 years in some instances, whereas a cookie is refreshed every 30 days. So Facebook now having to rely heavily on pretty much only cookies has meant that their attribution model has suffered, so they can't report the same kind of performance that they were to their advertising clients in the past. And that's going to be a scary situation if you're at Meta right now. I think 98% of their business comes from advertising. It's probably why they've changed their name to Meta, so they can start selling more Oculus devices and really get hardware in people's hands. And I think also there's something very interesting about Instagram allowing NFTs within their feeds, right? Again, an Ethereum wallet, a Web3 wallet, is unlikely to change, particularly if you use it frequently. And then being able to tie an Ethereum wallet to DAG wallet, whatever it may be, to an Instagram account then kind of gives them that replacement for the device ID, which has been lost in the last quarters. And I'll lean on you on this one, Chandru, but really a device ID a cookie ID, alphanumeric strings essentially, isn't too different to the way an NFT displays a particular image, right?
That's right. It's pretty much in the same vein. So I think the future would then be to pseudo-anonymize the data that's associated with a person. This is what we are moving towards. And a device ID was essentially pseudo-anonymizing what data is attached to a person. So which is what we will have, the same kind of effect that we will have with an NFT as well.
So do you think like wallets are really going to be the key to the future of advertising? Kind of wallets as an identifier, which sounds a bit scary, but isn't.
Absolutely. Wallets can be the potential solution for the cookie problem that the world is about to face once third-party cookies will be deprecated. So how we could move ahead is by tying NFTs present in the wallets, in the Web3 wallets, and associate them with user data. So we will only associate data with a string, which is essentially pseudo-anonymization. We will not be associating that with a person, a named person, whether that's Ben, Chorley, or Chandru, or whoever else. We don't need to associate data with a person. As long as, and this is where the concept of zero knowledge proof comes in, where, let's say we try to walk into a pub, the person, the security at the security guard at the pub would ask you for an identification. And if somebody were to present their driving license, the security personnel is interested in knowing whether you meet the age criteria to enter the pub or not. He or she is not interested in knowing how many points you have on your license, whether you're allowed to drive a car or a motorcycle. That's not the point of interest. So this is the concept that we will have to take forward by saying, what amount of data is required for a specific use case, and how do we restrict that company or that party from using or accessing only that amount of data while not being exposed to irrelevant data that they should not have access to. And I think that's the key point.
I think it's also interesting to consider sovereignty of data in this whole argument. So the main problem with most of what Google has done over the last however many years is that it has done it without the permission of users. That is the point of GDPR, right? It's like you can give away your data if you choose to do so. The current value exchange of that is, here's some free content that has already been available for the last 20 years. That is not exactly a selling point. So I think there needs to be a reimagining of this like value exchange, which is obviously what we're here to do, bring the user into that value exchange and get them to give permission for that data to be transferred to other people and rewarding them for that. That is the power of crypto, and that is something that has been kind of borne out over the existence of Bitcoin in the beginning and then other cryptocurrencies after that. It's the ability to reward people for good behavior and reinforce that good behavior. And I think that is something that has not existed within advertising at all. Obviously, there's been a big incentive to not be a good actor if you are collecting data from people for free and then effectively monetizing it. That is a big incentive not to ask for permission. So I think the GDPR and other privacy compliances have come into place basically to correct that, but there still isn't really a solution to go beyond that. And that is kind of what we're suggesting, is that the user is a sovereign over their data and they can permission that data towards advertisers for them to target products towards them, and then they will get rewarded for that. It kind of sounds like a very simple mix, but it's something that just doesn't happen right now.
That's true. And when we talk about regulation and GDPR specifically, the most abused concept of GDPR is the use of legitimate interest. Legitimate interest has been used in so many ways to bypass what should have been consent. So users should consent to their data being shared with a certain third party or a certain organization for specific purposes. But legitimate interest is currently being used to bypass the collecting consent from users. And that, I think, is something that can truly change with the use of Web3 concepts.
And I think even the concept of permission and consent, right, it's a very subtle difference. But the fact that, the IAB couldn't even get their consent forms correct on their website, the chances of any other website doing it is basically zero. But the difference is if you're asking for consent in a consent framework that exists, that is still completely different to somebody giving you permission preemptively. So I think those two things, if we can flip those on their heads, then we'll have already made a very big difference to the current ecosystem. But just the kind of implications of that for the user are huge.
Yeah, and I think we're essentially providing the rails for people to get involved in the internet value exchange, and also then incentivizing people to get involved. And really, if you kind of zoom out on a macro level, what we're saying here is there's now a ecosystem that is built on respect, understanding, transparency, and fairness. And the reason that we get so excited about that is because that is then finally using a token for utility. You know, it means that real businesses in the real world that earn real revenue outside of just like retail crypto speculation can use this token for a service that they do every single day, that the service is the reason they exist. And this service amounts to, across all of its constituent parts, $554 billion. So it's not an insignificant liquidity pool we're talking about. We saw some budgets from some big crypto companies last week, and I think in November 2021, Crypto.com spent $14.5 million on advertising. That is like a brand's budget for an entire year. So not only are we providing rails for the existing market, we're going to be providing rails for the crypto market, which as of recording is the tune of $1 trillion. A lot of that is spent on marketing. There is a significant amount of liquidity to provide liquidity within our system to allow for the reward to take place. So we are effectively saying that this state channel is underpinned by advertiser marketing budgets, advertiser liquidity to allow this to work perpetually in the exchange of fiat for data for services. So it's not something that is unsustainable, as we've kind of seen projects do that of late, kind of unsustainable APYs that have yet led to kind of stuff unwinding or not working correctly. So we are hugely excited about the promise of utility, and really we're kind of calling it utility season, right? It's what we're moving into, kind of people being able to use tokens for something that's not just staking, swapping, whatever it may be, you know? So actually delivering a service using a blockchain, which doesn't happen very often anywhere. So I think hopefully that perspective on the future made a lot of sense. We are very excited. We've all got our favorite t-shirts on today. It's been amazing to be here at High Def. One thing that we also just wanted to mention for any Constellation fans, any Alkimi fans, any fans of any project that's building on the hypergraph is that we will be hosting an Alkimi landing party in a number of different locations. So at the moment we will be visiting Paris, Berlin, London, and Amsterdam. So stay tuned for dates of when we'll be in town. We'd love to see as many of you as possible to share a beer, to talk things all hypergraph, to really just go deep on the future of what the hypergraph's going to make possible. So from us, thank you very much for having us. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. I know there's some amazing content lined up. And yeah, thank you again.
Thanks everyone.